The moving truck rumbled away, leaving me standing on the porch of my new home in Greenhaven. It looked perfect, idyllic even. White picket fences, manicured lawns, just what I thought I wanted. A place to finally exhale after all those years. But something felt off. A tightness in the air, like a held breath. Greenhaven presented a picture of suburban perfection. Neat rows of houses, each a mirror of the next, lined streets shaded by ancient oaks. Children on bicycles traced lazy circles on the smooth pavement, their laughter echoing faintly. Roses, uniformly red, bloomed in every front yard. It was the kind of place that appeared on postcards, almost too perfect, a curated reality that hinted at something unseen beneath the surface. New fellow moved into the old Miller place. Mrs. Henderson whispered to Mr. Davis across their shared hedge. Heard he's retired military. Davis grunted. His eyes narrowed. Hope he knows how things work around here. I needed peace. That's all I kept telling myself. The nightmares still came sometimes. The faces, the sounds. Greenhaven was supposed to be my escape. I pictured Sarah, her smile, the way she'd always known how to calm the storm inside me. This is it, love, I thought, looking up at the clear blue sky. A fresh start, but even the sun felt a little too controlled here. He slowly placed the picture of his late wife on a small table beside his sofa, the only different things inside that new house. John spent the rest of afternoon sitting on the porch, watching the meticulously orchestrated life of Greenhaven unfold. The feeling of unease grew stronger, a subtle dissonance that he couldn't quite place. I can see them through the windows. They whisper something about me. A retired soldier in a quiet place, and that's wired, right? But soon they will know who I am. The shadow was long, covered the old man and his house. Everything seemed too quiet, too perfect to be true. The unsettling feeling that had taken root on my first day in Greenhaven only intensified. It was like watching a play, where everyone knew their lines except me. The meticulously trimmed hedges and synchronized sprinklers felt less like a charming neighborhood and more like a carefully constructed facade. This feeling crystallized with the arrival of Karen, the HOA president. She appeared on my doorstep, not with a welcome basket, but with a clipboard and a pinched expression. Her blonde hair was pulled back so tightly it seemed to strain her features, and her eyes, magnified by thick glasses, scanned my property with undisguised disapproval. "You must be Mr. Peterson," she stated, her voice sharp and devoid of warmth. It wasn't a question. "I am," I replied, trying to maintain a neutral tone. "And you are?" "Karen Miller, president of the Greenhaven Homeowners Association. We have a few matters to discuss." She tapped her clipboard meaningfully. "Starting with that." She pointed a perfectly manicured finger at my car, a well-maintained but older model sedan parked in my own driveway. "It violates Regulation 3.2.7, subsection B. Vehicles over 10 years old must be parked in the garage." I blinked, taken aback. "It's in my driveway." "Precisely," Karen said, as if that explained everything. "The aesthetics of Greenhaven are of paramount importance. We maintain a certain standard." Her gaze then shifted to the old oak tree in my front yard, its branches spreading wide and providing welcome shade. "And that tree, it's not on the approved list. It will have to be removed." My initial politeness began to fray. "Removed? It's been here for probably 100 years. "Irrelevant," Karen dismissed. "Regulation 7.1.4 clearly states—" She proceeded to recite a litany of rules and sub-rules, her voice taking on an almost robotic quality. It was clear she reveled in wielding this petty power. I felt a flicker of the old fire, the one that had kept me alive in far more dangerous situations. This wasn't about rules, it was about control. Peeking through the blinds of their windows, Mr. and Mrs. Davis whispered to each other. "What did I tell you?" Mr. Davis said. "I hope he can handle her for our sake." Mrs. Davis replied, shaking her head. My mind, however, went back to another file, a file buried deep within the HOA's archives. I'd stumbled upon it during my late-night research, a record of financial irregularities, large sums of money unaccounted for, all linked to Karen's tenure. That, I thought, is where her power really lies. My decision to hang the American flag was not a deliberate act of provocation, but it might as well have been. For me, the flag was a symbol of service, sacrifice, and the freedoms I'd fought to protect. It was a connection to my past, to Sarah, to everything that mattered. As I stood back to admire it, a sense of peace, rare these days, settled over me. It was immediately shattered. Karen was back, this time practically vibrating with fury. That thing is in direct violation of HOA Regulation 13.5, she sputtered, waving a printed copy of the bylaws. No political or religious symbols are permitted. The American flag is not a thing, I said, my voice dangerously low, and it's certainly not political. It's protected under federal law. The HOA rules supersede federal law within Greenhaven, she insisted, her voice rising. Take it down, or you'll face fines, and I'll make sure everyone in this community knows what kind of troublemaker you are. That's when the whispers started. I'd catch snippets of conversation as I walked down the street. Defiant, disrespectful, asking for trouble. Some neighbors avoided eye contact altogether. Others, like old Mrs. Gable across the street, would offer a small, hesitant smile, a flicker of solidarity in a sea of fear. But there was also the quiet support. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, stopped his bike in front of my house one afternoon. "My grandpa said you were a hero," he said, his eyes wide with admiration. "He said Karen's a bully." And then there was the informant, a shadowy figure who'd started leaving anonymous notes in my mailbox. Clippings from old newspapers hinting at Karen's past, at a scandal involving a failed real estate development and missing funds. The notes were cryptic, but they pointed to something rotten at the heart of Greenhaven. The harassment escalated. My carefully tended garden was vandalized, roses ripped from their stems. Strange noises echoed in the night, a scratching at the window, a thud on the roof. One morning, I found a dead bird on my doorstep, a crude, unsettling message. I reported these incidents to the police, but they could do little without concrete proof. "Probably just kids," the officer said, dismissing my concerns. I knew better. This was Karen's doing, a campaign of intimidation designed to break me. My health started to suffer. The stress triggered old war injuries, sharp pains in my chest that sent me to the emergency room. My daughter, concerned, called from across the country. "Dad, maybe this isn't worth it," she pleaded. "Just follow the rules, keep your head down." Her words stung, but they also strengthened my resolve. This wasn't just about a flag or a tree anymore. It was about principle. It was about standing up to tyranny, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. My research intensified. I spent hours online, poring over legal documents, HOA bylaws, and old news articles. I discovered a pattern of intimidation, of residents being fined exorbitant amounts for minor infractions, of Karen using the HOA funds as her personal piggy bank. The informant's notes became more specific, leading me to a storage unit on the outskirts of town. Inside, I found boxes of documents, financial records, contracts, letters, all meticulously organized, all damning. Karen had been systematically embezzling money from the HOA for years, using the threat of fines and social ostracism to keep everyone in line. Meanwhile, my old Army buddy, a retired lawyer named Jack, had been doing some digging of his own. "John," he said over the phone, his voice grim, "this Karen Miller has a history. She was involved in a similar scheme years ago, in another town. Got away with it then, but we won't let her do it again." Karen, sensing that her control was slipping, called an emergency HOA meeting. The community room was packed, the air thick with tension. She stood at the podium, her face flushed, her voice shrill. "Mr. Peterson," she declared, "has consistently and deliberately violated our community's rules. He has shown disrespect for our values, and he has created an atmosphere of disharmony. I propose we impose the maximum penalty, a fine of $10,000 and immediate eviction." A gasp went through the room. I stood up calmly and walked to the front. "Karen," I said, my voice steady, "you're a liar and a thief." The room erupted in murmurs. Karen's face turned white. "How dare you?" I held up a folder, the evidence I'd gathered. "I have proof," I said, "that you've been embezzling HOA funds for years. You've bullied and intimidated this community, using your position for personal gain." I laid out the facts clearly and concisely, presenting the documents, the bank statements, the letters. The informant, I revealed, was none other than Mrs. Gable, who had bravely come forward with her own story of Karen's abuse. One by one, other residents started to speak up, sharing their own experiences of Karen's tyranny. The tide had turned. The fear that had held them captive for so long was replaced by anger, by a collective demand for justice. Suddenly, the doors of the community room burst open, and 2 police officers entered. Jack, my lawyer friend, had tipped them off. "Karen Miller," one of the officers said, "you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and harassment." Karen tried to bluster, to deny the accusations, but it was no use. The evidence was overwhelming. As the officers led her away in handcuffs, she looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and fear. It was the look of a tyrant dethroned. But the story didn't quite end there. As the police investigated, they uncovered a deeper conspiracy. Karen hadn't been working alone. A local real estate developer, a shadowy figure named Mr. Thompson, had been pulling the strings, using Karen to manipulate property values and force residents to sell their homes at below-market prices. He was the true architect of Greenhaven's oppressive regime. The police went to Mr. Thompson's house, ready to arrest him. This sets the stage for a potential sequel, or a continuation of the struggle against corruption and abuse of power. The battle against Karen may be won, but the larger war may still be ongoing. The ending provides resolution to the immediate conflict, but also leaves room for further development. The victory is bittersweet, a reminder that vigilance and courage are always necessary to protect freedom and justice. Karen's departure was like a dam breaking. The silence that had shrouded Greenhaven for so long shattered, replaced by a torrent of whispered stories, shared grievances, and finally, open expressions of relief. As I watched her patrol car disappear down the street, a neighbor, Mr. Henderson, the same man who'd been so wary of me initially, approached. He didn't offer congratulations, not yet. Instead, he asked, a hint of shame in his voice, Did you ever feel sorry for her?" I considered the question. Karen had wielded her power like a weapon, inflicting pain and fear on this community. But seeing her stripped of that power, reduced to a frightened, defeated woman, did evoke a flicker of something. Not pity, perhaps, but a recognition of the hollowness of her ambition. "No," I finally said. "I don't feel sorry for what happened to her. Justice was served. Maybe, just maybe, she feels sorry for her action. The official remove Karen from HOA was swift. There were no farewell, no goodbyes, just the whir of legal proceeding. She become another people, other than HOA president, a normal, helpless old lady. In the days that followed, a palpable shift occurred. Neighbors who had once avoided eye contact now stopped to chat, sharing their own stories of Karen's intimidation. Mrs. Gable, her secret revealed, became a local hero, her quiet courage an inspiration. The HOA meetings, once dreaded events, transformed into lively forums, filled with genuine debate and a renewed sense of community spirit. For me, the nightmares didn't vanish overnight, but they lessened. The fresh air of Greenhaven, no longer tainted by fear, finally felt like the healing balm I'd sought. I replanted my roses, and the American flag waved proudly, a symbol not just of my own service, but of the collective victory of a community that had found its voice. My daughter called, relief evident in her voice. "You did it, Dad," she said. "You really did it." And for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace that went beyond the absence of conflict. It was the peace of knowing I'd stood up for what was right, and in doing so had helped others find their strength too. It's never too late to stand for what you believe, and sometime it's take more than one person to bring the truth to the light.